Hi everyone, welcome back to the channel. So I wanted to react to this clip of two men who identify as women. We have Lavern Cox and T.S. Madison, who are basically mansplaining to women how they shouldn't feel threatened when a man walks into their private space. If that man has a certain label, that a man with a certain label, let's say transgender, is not a threat. How they know that, I do not know. But apparently, they're not a threat if they have a label. So we shouldn't feel any way about men coming into our spaces. And they also have an issue with people using scientific terms like sex as opposed to gender identity. They have a problem with people using the phrase biological sex. So let's take a look and see what they have to say.
Stop using the phrase biological sex because you sound crazy.
Wow, imagine saying with your whole chest that it's the people who use the term biological sex who sound crazy. Not the people who say cis men, cis women. No, biological sex. It's as if they want to do away with all acknowledgement of science because it doesn't fit their narrative.
Abusers, and includes trans women in that. It's delusional and it's crazy. It's insane. This woman is out of control. But there's also trauma attached as well. But then, but unless a trans woman abused you, this isn't about us.
Right.
We're not men. We're just not. And for the people who.
Yeah, so we have someone like Riley Gaines. I don't know who they're talking about. I'm not going to watch the long version because I can't listen to this nonsense for much longer. But we have someone like Riley Gaines who was in the shower, and Leah Thomas, a man, walks into the shower exposing himself to everybody.
Does it get more perverted than being in a shower, which is typical for a swimming locker room, especially you're in the chlorine, you get out, you're in the pool 5 times a day, you rinse off. Does it get more perverted than standing in the shower, totally undressed, when a 6'4" man approaches you, stands in the shower head next to you, undresses himself, fully naked, fully intact, and watches you shower? That's the context I was drawing. And to me, that is sexual abuse. What me and my teammates had to go through was certainly sexual abuse.
She tells that story and says, I don't think it's a good idea for men to be coming into women's showers under the guise of gender identity. I don't think it's a good idea for men to be competing in women's swimming under the guise of gender identity. And then she gets told that unless a trans woman abuses you, how dare you attribute that to us? Does that make any sense? It was a man who identified as transgender who exposed himself to the female athletes. We had girls trying to get changed in broom closets because they didn't want to have to get undressed in front of a man. They didn't want to be exposed to male genitalia. And I'm sorry, but isn't it the WNBA is talking about acting, in good faith or in bad faith in reference to Ennis and Royce? Well, if you're a man and you go into the women's showers because of some stupid policy and you're exposing yourself to women, there's no way you can do that in good faith. Absolutely no way you can do that in good faith. They're literally telling women, by mansplaining, that we are to desensitize ourselves to our natural instincts that are there, our God-given instincts that are there for our own protection. Yes, it's perfectly normal to be in fear and to be on your guard when a man walks into your locker room, when a man walks into your bathroom. And we're not supposed to just do away with those fears and concerns just because the man's wearing a dress or the man says he has a gender identity. Absolutely not. And this is the conditioning that has been going on.
Can we say it loud? For those of you out there that are watching, we're trans women.
Yes.
And what is the prerequisite of being a trans woman? Being a man. No woman goes around saying, we're trans women. So again, the label that you've given yourself, that doesn't change who you are biologically speaking. It doesn't turn you into a woman. It turns you into a man who wants to present himself as a woman and he wants to pretend to be a woman, it turns you into a man in woman face.
We're not men.
The people who are
And we are the crazy ones. We're the ones who sound crazy. A man saying that we're not men because you want to dress a certain way, that means nothing to a woman who's minding her own business in the bathroom and a man walks in. Now, some women may say, oh, well, I'm okay with it, but they can't speak for every woman. And you can't tell people how to feel. You can't tell people what they're allowed to be concerned about and what they have to be comfortable with. You can't tell people they have to go against their instincts. And these are the same people who claim to be scared about using the men's. They say, well, it's not safe for us to use the men's because of the way they dress and everything.
I'd be expected to leave my female colleagues and go to the men's loos in a London pub with female anatomy. That's not safe. And I'm as much at risk of assault or rape as any other woman.
So it's okay for you to be in fear of men, but not for women to be in fear of men. Wow. That's how it works. It's okay for women to be forced to compete against male athletes, but these same male athletes claim that it's not safe for them to compete in the men's category.
Elite sport is over for me because I can't do what I used to love.
But you can compete in an open category.
Can I? Would it be safe for me to compete in an open category?
abused you are men, and they have abused us too.
Yes.
Yeah, we know that men can be violent towards other men. This isn't breaking news. If these men do not feel safe around other men, that's not our problem. We shouldn't be forced to endanger ourselves. It's the women who are most vulnerable. Because at the end of the day, if a man came to you, violently or in, some other dangerous manner, you're in a better position to defend yourself than a woman is.
Yes.
We have more in common than
differences.
Yeah.
We are not men. We might have been born male.
Assigned male at birth. I stick to that because it's like, and people are questioning that. But it's an assignment because they're not testing for chromosomes and all that at birth. They look at external genitalia and assign you something.
You're not assigned male at birth. It's an acknowledgement at birth. It's an acknowledgement of what you are. And it's not even at birth. At 20 weeks, they can determine if the baby is male or female. It's an acknowledgement. It's not an assignment. The doctor isn't God. The doctor doesn't determine who's male and female. They acknowledge it. Yes, you were born male. And guess what? You still are. You did a sex test tomorrow, that Y chromosome will be found. You cannot tell us to ignore what our eyes are showing us. Those instincts have been put in place in us for our own safety. And no one should be telling women to suppress that. And certainly, no one should be calling women bigots and all kinds of names just because they react in a perfectly normal way. For a woman to react when a man comes into her bathrooms or showers or locker rooms.
It has absolutely nothing to do with the complexity of what makes men and women and non-binary people who they are. So a doctor assigns.
Look at the camera and tell them that, Lavern. What did the doctor do?
The doctor assigns gender at birth. Assigns. And yes, there is a difference between sex and gender. Yes.
No, there isn't. People aren't falling for that nonsense anymore. There isn't. Gender's just a euphemism because not everybody likes to use the word sex. That's it. It's the same thing. We're talking about biology, whether one is male or female. And you can use whatever language, whatever mantras you want to use. These are like religious mantras to these people. And you can choose to believe what you want, but that doesn't change reality. And you can't force everybody else to walk around deluding themselves. We don't have to believe that a man can become a woman. That's what you choose to believe, but you can't force everyone else to believe that. And you certainly cannot force women to agree with legislation that literally opens their spaces up to any man to walk in. We don't have to agree with that. And we can speak up and say that that is wrong and that that legislation is reckless. People don't want their daughters, their nieces, their granddaughters subjected to policies that put them in danger. They can't pick and choose the men that are allowed to go into that space. That would be called discrimination. So they open it up to all men, and it's stripping away protection from women. This is all we're trying to say. Everybody should be required to use the spaces that align with their biological sex. And if you've got a problem being with men, think about how women feel being with men. Why is the onus on women, on females, to accept men into their spaces?
And stop using the phrase biological sex because you sound crazy. Stick with me. There's no such thing. We're talking about genetics. Biology just means living, like life. By something that's biological is something that is alive. Biological sex is, you sound crazy.
Do you see how this works? It's like everything has to be turned upside down. We have to deny science. We have to change our language. We can't use, real English and attribute certain words to a particular meaning. We have to change the meaning of words, turn the English language upside down, be forced to use made up words, be forced to use language that isn't accurate. Like when there's a male murderer or predator, and they call that man a woman and attribute his crimes to us. Now we have to do away with science. How dare we use biological sex? It's like we have to do away with everything to accommodate this ideology.
So do we stop saying biological women and just say women?
I've always used...
I actually agree with that. I wouldn't have a problem with that, just saying women. I wouldn't have a problem with that. But people feel the need to say biological woman because, again, they've tried to destroy the very word woman. And now we have the WNBA unable to define what a woman is. People feel the need to say biological woman because of what's happened to the word woman. This is what Tish had to say to this nonsense. Women are being told to override our own boundaries because someone else wants to be perceived differently. But women do not owe anyone access to our spaces, our bodies, our sense of safety. If a woman's trauma makes her uncomfortable around male bodies, telling her she needs to unlearn that reaction is not compassion. Her boundaries matter too. Respect cannot mean women are the only ones being asked to ignore what makes us feel unsafe. Women deserve dignity, women deserve boundaries, women deserve to say no without being shamed for it. I mean, that is perfectly written. Perfectly written. And remember, Tish had to deal with random men coming into the women's locker room at her gym. There was 1 week where she encountered like a new man walking into the locker room like practically every day because she goes to the gym most days a week. That incident that that went viral, that was one of many men that she encountered that week. Like, how ridiculous. Even if there is no trauma in her background and she doesn't want men around in her spaces, that reaction is called instinct. It can't be unlearned.
Now, a lot of people, saw what happened to me, but didn't see what happened to me in that locker room. Yo, my mind changed. That shit was traumatic. It was the most traumatic experience I have ever had as a grown-ass woman. So yeah, I speak passionately about this shit. I fucking hate it. Because it happened to me 4 different times, 3 different men in a 2-week span that called me a bitch for being naked, confused, and afraid. No regard for my naked body. Men don't know how to have regard for women. They are not women. They don't know what it's like to be afraid. They don't know what it's like to always be fucking scared. I'm fucking sick of it.
What T.S. Madison and Lavern were trying to do there is condition women to accept them into their spaces and to basically put down all their boundaries. And to imply that if you have boundaries, there's something wrong with you. You sound crazy. All of this. That is the conditioning that a lot of women have been through. Society in general.
And I want to say that this is grooming. In the book, Sexual Grooming, Integrating Research, Practice, Prevention, and Policy, one of the things that it speaks about in here is that grooming is the normalization and desensitization of increasing boundary violations. So the ideology of transgenderism has allowed grooming on a massive scale to happen. It is normalizing boundary violations. It is desensitizing women to boundary violations. In the past, if this were to happen, if a man had come into the women's room, all of the women would be outraged. So this woman right now is very brave to address the obvious. The rest of the women in those rooms have been effectively groomed. The normalization of the boundary violation that is happening to them, they have assimilated it. And this is how grooming functions. And we must stop this grooming to protect ourselves and our daughters.
So yeah, there's nothing wrong with having boundaries. There's nothing wrong with saying that men should not be allowed into women's spaces. Even men who wear dresses, even men who have implants and all sorts and have certain mannerisms because they like to hide behind all those things. But there's nothing funny about this. There's nothing funny about this at all. And it's about time we stop telling people how to feel. We stop telling women to, that there's something wrong with their boundaries, that there's something wrong with expecting certain provisions to be in place for our safety. And yes, you cannot change your biological sex. And that is something that is not assigned at birth, but simply acknowledged. So let me know what you think. Thanks for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe. Take care of yourselves, and God willing, I will see you in the next video. And a huge thanks to all of those who have hyped my videos. It is greatly appreciated.